If you aren't making music, you can't build an audience for it. Let's talk about that. Yep, that's right. If you want to build an audience for your music, you got to have some music. It's interesting. In the first episode of this series, in which I am sharing how I am building my online audience with all of you, I kind of gave some grim realities. It was kind of a level set video, but lots of great comments from folks and lots of great conversations about the challenges of making music and building an audience for it in today's world. I did have a couple people, though, that said, Bill, I only had one video that got any traffic at all, and everything else just went pfft. Well, in a couple of those instances, I went and looked at those folks' YouTube channels, and here's what I noticed. Video posted 7 years ago, one video posted 6 years ago, one video posted 2 years ago, one video posted 7 months ago. You get the picture, right? This person is disappointed with the results, but they're not making much music. And that's the point. If you're not making music, you can't expect people to pay attention to what you're doing. So the big question is, how do we make more music? I've got 5 suggestions for doing so. Number 1, this is going to seem self-evident, but I don't think it is. Make your music a priority in your life. Here's the thing. We make time in our lives for the things that are important to us. And again, I've talked to many people who say, oh, music is my life, but I don't have any time to do it. Well, there may be a few cases where that person really doesn't have time to do it. However, I think in most cases, that person is actually just doing things that are more important to them. Are you watching television instead of making music? Maybe that's more important to you than music. Are you playing video games rather than making music? Maybe that's more important to you than making music. Are you a social person? Maybe you're going out with friends several times a week, maybe going to a club or maybe a bar, restaurant, having just a pleasant evening and not making music. Well, what's more important to you? So hopefully you see where I'm going with this. If music is really important to you, prove it by making time for it. All right, suggestion number 2. If you're going to make time for your music, make time on a weekly basis. Yeah, and I know this is going to be hard, right? If you're not used to this, it's going to require making changes in your weekly routine, maybe in your life. So there's a couple things you need to think about. One is, realistically, how much time can you spend for music? So if you're like me, I work a full-time job Monday through Friday, and it's kind of a demanding job. Sometimes I have to put in overtime. So I really need to be careful with my time away from work to ensure that I have time for music. Now, maybe you're a parent of small children. I was at one point in my life, actually for many years. And I don't think your music should be more important than your children, right? But think about what the balance is. What can you do in the context of your family life? And while you're considering how much time is realistic for you to put into making music, please, please, please talk to your family and your loved ones about what you want to do. I've been married for a long time, and my wife is awesome. And I try to be very careful about talking to her about what time I'm planning on spending each week on making music, on shooting videos, and all that good stuff. And sometimes we have to negotiate back and forth if there are other priorities in the family. So it's really important to communicate with your family and loved ones about what your goals are, what you want to do in terms of making music. All right, you've determined that music actually is important to you, and you've determined how much time you can devote to it each week. Number 3 is you need a weekly goal. Okay, now, let's just talk about that for a minute. I am not a list maker. I like to have a very loosey-goosey schedule, right? So I'm not that kind of tight, well, maybe some people think I'm tightly wound, but I don't think I'm that tightly wound. I don't like to have a big schedule. I don't keep a complex calendar. But I do try to keep in my mind every week, what do I want to accomplish with my music this week? So if I'm going to accomplish something with my music every week, then that means I need to keep the scope of what I'm doing down to something that I can actually accomplish in a week. So for me, what that means is I never do large, at least at this point in my life, I'm not doing any large-scale musical recordings. I'm keeping my recordings pretty simple, 1, 2, maybe 3 tracks. I'm keeping them limited in scope to make sure that I can complete it within a week's time. Now, your goals for creating music may be a little bit different than mine, but I think the concept applies, right? Keep your weekly goals chunked down small enough so you can actually finish them off in a week. Number 4, and I'm sorry to do this because I've already introduced complexity into your week. I need to introduce just a little bit more. And that is, in addition to actually making the music, if you're recording, say, I want you to set aside some time to practice your instrument. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to listen to people's music over the last several years. In fact, it's actually at the point now, it's almost every day. Someone will send me a Facebook message, Twitter, Instagram direct message, or somewhere on YouTube or email and say, hey, Bill, can you listen to this music and give me feedback? And I don't always have time to do it. As a matter of fact, for those of you who have asked, I don't often have time to do that. But when I do check out musicians, sometimes they're great musicians, but sometimes the skill on their instrument is very minimal. So the less skill you have on your instrument, the more limited you are in what you can actually produce in terms of making music. So as you're recording the music, set aside a few hours each week just to practice the instrument and get better at your craft. Number 5, I just talked about improvement, right? So if you're improving, that means at one point you're not as good as you are now, and you're not as good now as you will be in the future. Don't wait to start making the music. Start now. So again, if you're recording music, start recording now. That way you can get in the rhythm even as you're building skills on your instrument. You can get in the rhythm of producing music. And then, as you do it every week, if you can get into that weekly rhythm, oh man, if you do that for a year's time, you're going to see big improvements in the music that you make and also in the skill that you have in your instrument. All right, we're making music. We're making a lot of music now, but who the heck is the music for? That's what the next video is all about. I will link it here when that video becomes available. And until then, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see you over on that video.